with a pledge to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. First up, visitor citizens forum. At this time, any person not scheduled on the agenda may speak to the council. Linda, has anyone notified you?
No one has signed up.
No one has signed up. All right. Next up, we have a proclamation designating September 17th through the 23rd as Constitution Week in the town of Lakewood Village. So we do this every year. Normally, the people are here from the Daughters of the American Revolution. Obviously, with it being closed, they can't make it, but they still asked us if we would still go through with the proclamation. So, Linda, I just read this like I would normally, right? Okay, so whereas on September 17th, 1787, 55 delegates to the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia's Independence Hall signed the United States Constitution, a document that serves as a guardian of our liberties. And whereas September 17th, 2020 marks the 233rd anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution by the Constitutional Convention, and whereas it is the privilege, honor, and duty of the American people to accord official recognition to this magnificent document, and whereas Public Law 915 guarantees issuing some proclamation each year by the President of the United States designating September 17th through the 23rd as Constitution Week. Now, therefore, I, Dr. Mark E. Vargas, Mayor of the town of Lakewood Village in the state of Texas, do hereby proclaim the week of September 17th through the 23rd as Constitution Week, and ask our citizens to reaffirm the ideals the framers of our Constitution had by vigilantly protecting the freedoms guaranteed to us, reflecting on that privilege of being an American, all the rights and responsibilities which those privileges involve. In witness thereof, I set my hand and cause the town seal to be affixed on this 10th day of September 2020. Okay, very good. All right, next up on the agenda then is a public hearing. So it's a public hearing scheduled on the proposed combined property tax rate of 45 cents per $100 for citizen comment. Linda, did anyone?
No one requested to sign.
All right.
No one requested to speak.
No one requested to speak. Okay. All right. Next up, we have.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
All right. Motion to close the public hearing.
I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Julie made the motion. Dale seconded it. All those are great. Okay. Thank you. All right. Next up, we have a public hearing. It's closed. I forget what I said. Anyway, okay. A public hearing scheduled on the requested annexation of A0339A Dixon Track and Dixon Track 2A. This is basically giving the public an opportunity to speak regarding the triangle out front. We're beginning the process of annexing it. They've requested annexation, and there's numerous steps involved. And one of them is to have at least one public hearing. We're going to have probably several, just to give everybody the opportunity. Until we actually vote on it, we're just going to keep having that. So, when did anyone sign up?
No one requested to speak.
Okay.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
I have a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All right, we got a lot of seconds. Matt was first. Give it to Matt. All those in favor? All right, thank you. All right. Next up on the consent agenda, all items on the consent agenda are due to be self-explanatory. There was only one item here which is a little bit different, and that one is okay. There's two things here that are a little bit different. One is a roof pitch, which is on the new house going in. Linda, this one is the one at 815.
It is 8:19.
Well,
It's
8:15. They keep writing 8:19, but it's actually 8:15. They keep getting the address wrong. Anyway, this is our normal. It's the dropping the roof pitches over the second story, right? You can't have this roof pitch up in front of the windows. So we typically granted this automatically because it's in the way. So the only difference with this one was that I think our ordinance reads if it's over an entryway, like at my house, if you walk in the front door, you can't pitch it. My entryway extends out. If you pitched it up, you block the windows. This is over some windows or something. It's treatment on the ground floor. It's not an entryway, literally. It's the same effect. It's a punch out where you can't elevate. So it's essentially the same thing. So that's what that is. It's minimal. The next thing is on the, Linda, you didn't put the map in here, did you?
You just click on the bookmarks of the drainage easement. Yeah.
Okay. So, you may not recognize this property. You would know it. So if you went down the end of Meadow Lake, this is Drew and Dana's property, Drew and Dana Spessard. This is the one that Lucia's old house was in, where Drew did a ton of remodeling on it, kind of the Mediterranean one. Well, that one was originally, that house was a bunch of little houses, actually like little cottages. It was spread out over a couple lots. But when they redid it, there was a drainage easement, there still is a drainage easement right down the middle of the house, right through the front door. That's where our drainage easement is, which we saw when we did the engineering, when we looked at all the easements. So I talked with Drew about it before. What the city did was, the city ended up, I don't have it, do I? So what the city did was, years ago, after Lucia built her stuff here, the city actually laid a pipe under the ground up here, and they ran it between this property line here. That's where they ran the pipe, is between Drew's house and the, anyway, I'm blanking on it again. Anyway, so when we did the engineering, we found out, A, we don't need this. There's no reason for this water to go around this corner, stop, bump, do a 90-degree here. We just brought the water back around here, then it goes under a pipe and it goes to the lake this way. That's the design. This has no reason to be here. So, A, it's got to go away anyway because we don't have any legal rights to put it there. It's not in an easement. So there's not a pipe running the length. There's only a pipe that pops out under the street right here. So we're going to take it out and not put it back. And then for Drew, since we're not going to use this easement and it runs through his front door, we both got together and said, why don't we just abandon this easement? We don't need it. So all it requires is just the council to approve an easement, to abandon it, and then I'll have the attorney draw up a simple, we abandon the easement, I'll sign it, and then we record it with the records. Okay, so and there are a couple of easements in town that we don't need anymore that we're just going to delete because there's no reason if we don't need them. So that's what that is. Okay, is there any questions? Okay, that's why I put it on consent.
I make a motion to agenda.
All right, I have a motion to approve the consent agenda. One second. Eric, excuse me, you've got the second. All those in favor? Very good, thank you. All right. All right, next up we have the, first up is consideration of the fiscal year 2021 budget. We have to do the budget first. And so what we have to do is we're required to do a ratification vote. You have to approve the budget twice. Okay, just to make sure you really meant it the first time. And it's going to be a roll call vote to approve the budget. Does anyone have any questions about the budget?
Nope, I think we got it.
Everything is good. We're continuing. Everything is, the last month has been phenomenal. We're doing great. I haven't seen anything. I don't see anything. The budget's, nothing's changed.
Do we need a motion on
We have
this
that
rest?
motion and a second motion.
Okay.
I make a motion that we approve. Pardon me?
Ratify.
I make a motion that we ratify. I move to ratify the property tax rate reflect.
No.
Yes.
Budget.
No, that's right. Awful.
That's right,
You
right?
got the budget?
Well, it says property tax rate, but it also defines the budget as well.
The property tax rate reflected in the budget
Yeah.
is what you're ratifying.
That's what I'm reading. I move to ratify the property tax increase reflected in the fiscal year 2021 budget as presented.
Second.
Motion, Dale, second from Serena. All those in, roll call.
Mayor Pro Tem Mott.
Yes?
Councilman Bishop.
Yes.
Councilwoman Leslie. Yes. Councilman Farage.
Yes.
Councilman Smith.
Yes. All right, thank you. Next up is consideration of the fiscal year 2021 property tax rate. So let me briefly explain something to you real quick. pretty complicated. So last year, the legislature made a bunch of changes to the tax stuff. And basically what it used to be was what they did is they changed it. And it used to be that you could do 8%. If your property taxes went up 8%, you were good. There was nothing anybody could do. 8% was the cap. If you exceed the cap, then up until last year, citizens could petition you to roll it back. And then you had a choice. You either rolled it back voluntarily to 8, or you had an election in November. And whatever happened, happened. So that was the rule. What they did in this last year was they changed it and said instead of being 8, it's 3.5. So it's 3.5%. And if you go above that cap, it's not a petition, it's an automatic election. You will have an election in November where the citizens get to vote whether or not to roll the rate back down. So if our appreciation, house on house, forget the new stuff, house on house, if your appreciation, let's say in Little Elm, went up by 7%, unless they want an election, they have to drop their tax rate down so that the total net increase would only be 3.5. They're forced to drop that rate down. Or have an election in November where the question is, do you want your tax rate to go down? And let the citizens vote on that. So that's the way the law is. Having said that, that's not the law for Lakewood Village. They changed the law but said small cities have a different set of rules. So we have a different set. So essentially, without going into all the details, the calculations are all there. For us, we only have to have an election if there's a petition. We have no automatic election. And for a small town, to calculate the threshold for that, they let you basically add a lot of money to, they have a floor. So for us, it's like $1.10 or something. Or we have to like triple our tax rate before we would ever be close to having a petition. So we'll never have that. Okay? Now, the 3.5% that you get, if you ever go below 3.5, you can bank the difference. So if you did only 2% one year with your tax rate, so the average person's only been up by 2, then what happens is you get to bank that and you can use it in another year. So they actually let you, so if you're under 3.5, it's good. Well, for us, we were way under because our values actually decreased. So they didn't go up, they went down. So we actually have a big buffer built into ours. And basically what it means is that the 3.5% number that they talked about and bandied around, that does not apply to Lakewood. It has nothing to do with us. And it never will. Until we get to a population over 30,000, which ain't going to happen. So for us, basically, the upper bound is so sky high that we're never going to come close to it. Okay? So that's the reality of the new tax laws. They basically don't apply to small towns. And ours actually went down. So our year on year is lower, but because of a couple of new houses, our grand total went up. That make sense? Okay. So that's the plan. So I think this is another roll call vote.
Yep. So I move to adopt the property tax of 45 cents per $100 valuation as presented.
All right, Matt has the, sorry, Tarina's got the second.
Mayor Pro Tem Hunt.
Yes.
Councilman Bishop.
Yes.
Councilwoman Leslie. Yes. Councilman Farage.
Yes.
Councilman Bissonnette.
Yes.
see, we're making progress. The rain hurts everybody. Again, the problem with the rain is, even if it's a sunny day, they have to go back and do the testing for compaction and moisture content in the road. And they're not allowed to pour on the day they do the test. They have to do the test on one day, then they give the test results, then they schedule the concrete for the next day. There's a day lag. So they're not allowed to run out there and have the test guy in front of the cement truck, because that becomes a problem. They're going to try and pour tomorrow. Because of colder weather, it's going to take 3 days for the driveways to open rather than 2, which is fine. Friday takes you to Monday. So that's why they're good on Friday pouring. We have some issues with Stowe Lane. If you've looked at Stowe, there's some pretty serious discussions going on behind the scenes as to the extent they did not do the drainage according to the design. It looks like they eyeballed it. Well, the engineers have exact tolerances and actual elevations and heights and where everything's supposed to tie in both sides of the bar ditch, etc. So they did not do that. So when they put the sod down, it's not draining. So I took a video today, basically one whole side of Stowe, almost 3/4 of the street, the water just sitting in the bar ditch, all the entire length of the bar ditch. The engineer's going to come out probably next week with a level. They're going to measure it, the actual elevations, with the expectation that they're not going to be close to the plan. So the issue becomes one of they're probably going to have to rip out all that sod and regrade it, and then put the sod back down. We've offered to let them roll it in some places if that would get it to drain better, but it looks like they're going to have to basically rip the sod out and bring in the bobcats and grade it correctly this time.
That is done under that previous on-site supervisor? Is that why it's off, or what?
I'm trying to remember in my head. It seems like what I recall is when they were doing all the grade work, I don't remember survey stakes, like, with elevations or those little fuzzy pink balls, or, like when they did the road, they're out there, with stakes and just markings and elevations, like the gravel should be this high, It seems very precise when they're putting down the base in the road. But in the bar ditch, I remember the stakes that said the road is 5 feet offset. The road, I don't remember seeing stakes driven in the bar ditch, say like grade to this point, or grade, I don't ever remember seeing any of those. I think they just eyeballed it and just kind of, measured the flow line and kind of, did it. But the nice thing is, it's engineered. There's an actual, the engineer spec says that side of the road should be at 542.3. Well, let's go out and measure it. If it's at 545, that's probably why it's not draining, because it's, too high. So, and the inlets, they obviously did it wrong because they graded the dirt even to the flush of the inlet. Well, imagine if you've got a drain and you grade it now even with the bottom, and then you put sod on top of that.
Yeah, you're over it.
You're over the top. That's why it's, you can look at it and go, that's not going to work. It's over the top of the inlets. So there's still work to be done on Stowe. That's why they haven't finished sodding.
What about the center line of Stowe? Did anyone think it looks so thick in some areas and so skinny, the gray, black stuff, or whatever it's called,
I didn't really notice that. What I did notice was there's a lot of discoloration down the center line. I was looking at it, and apparently what that was is when they put in the second lane, some of the concrete spilled over. It kind of splashed when they were vibrating it. It splashed over into the older concrete. So my guess is, after you dry, it'll pop up. It'll basically will go away. It's just little, and I drove it today and I'm thinking, oh gosh, this is so, it's so discolored, all this crazy. But I think over time, it's all going to fade.
It's all going to...
I got to keep telling myself, just relax, it's all going to fade.
Yeah, that's all going to be the same thing.
But other than that, I mean, they're...
Yeah. I drove it yesterday morning. It was really nice, except for the water standing in there, which it hadn't rained for 2 days at that point, I don't think.
There's a couple of spots where there's some standing water, especially in the approaches. But, it is what it is. I would suggest don't out the financials. We still have, the gap is about 413 right now, the total gap. We think we have about 100 coming in change order. So we should be around 300 if all that works out, which is well within planning. And then, we'll just roll on. Rain days don't count against them. But I can't think of anything else. We're going to move some stuff out of the way to help them out down at the end of Meadow Lake. We're going to move a fire hydrant. We're going to relocate a fire hydrant. So one of the things that we are doing is we have to move a fire hydrant because they were going to put the inlet. The inlet has to go where the drainage goes. And underneath that inlet was going to be a main junction point of 3 water lines. It was going to be directly under it. And as you know, junctions are where water lines tend to fail. So I made the decision to move that over to the other side of the street, on the opposite side, is where we're going to put it. If we're going to do that, we might as well extend the 6-inch line, which we will, so that at a future date, we can put a fire hydrant on Meadow Lake. It's the only street that doesn't have a fire hydrant. So we're doing a little bit of a line extension, not all the way, but just part of the way to get it onto the street. We're also going to run a new water line to the empty lot at the end of Meadow Lake. We're not sure if it has a water line, so we're going to run it now under the cul-de-sac and give them a water line just in case. It'll also serve as a replacement line if the house where all this work is happening, if that line were to break later on or whatever, we don't have to bore on the street. So, kind of thinking ahead, trying to get ahead of it. So we're doing a little bit of water and sewer stuff on that street. The guy with the house on Meadow Lake, we've instructed him not to pour. He's trying to pour. There's no way to pour. The street's closed. That's kind of the way that goes. Okay? But, we're moving on. All right, next up, any questions about the roads? Everybody good? Matt, you're on the front lines. Good? Looking good? Okay. All right, next up, consideration of engineering traffic study. So what this is, one of the things we have to do for our traffic light is you have to get a warrant. So there are about 12 categories that you have to meet. So you can't just put a traffic light up because you feel like it. You have to. There's a uniform code. The manual of uniform traffic control devices. It has requirements you have to meet. It has to be a licensed traffic engineer. Has to say you meet one of the criteria, and that gives us the legal way to put a light in. So with our discussions, I discussed it with land plan again. There's 4 discrete things. One is the traffic study. That says you can have a light. 2 is designing the entrance, in, out, where the light goes, the lanes, all of that stuff. That's part 2. Part 3 is supervising the actual construction of that entrance. Just like the road guys now, we have our engineers supervising the construction to make sure it meets code. And part 4 is the traffic signal itself, acquisition and installation of the signal. There's basically 4 components. We have to do the first component ourselves, which is the traffic study. So we want to get that going now. Well, land plan is still dealing with the school board, and they're waiting on their closing, and they're dealing with that. So we can get that underway. Then when I'm talking land plan, they will probably do the next step, which is designing that as part of their design. Because we didn't have a good product when we did it. Okay, I'll talk about that later. So this is a traffic study that we're going to do. We need to do it. So this is just basically, I had the task order. Todd was going to send it to me. I have an old one. He was going to update it to change some of the cost on that task order to do the traffic study. But basically, I'm asking you guys to authorize me to execute that task order so we can get the traffic study rolling. It's roughly $20,000 to $30,000, and it's in the developer agreement. So we're going to get reimbursement. That makes sense?
So Emily Horn does the traffic?
Yes, it has to be a licensed traffic engineer.
Yeah, I didn't know they were a licensed traffic engineer.
Yes, yeah.
So I make a motion that we approve you to issue the work order?
You're authorizing me to execute the task order.
Execute the task order
For the traffic study. Okay, I have Daryl. Matt's got the second. All those in favor? Aye, okay, thank you guys. All right, now we'll keep moving forward. Next up, discussion of the Rocky Point water system. So, obviously while I was on vacation, Last Resort, which is next to Rocky Point, failed hard. We got the emergency request from TCQ to please supply aid in any way we can. Unfortunately, our water operator didn't do that. Patterson decided to try and acquire the system rather than helping us do the interconnect. So we went ahead and did the interconnect. We notified TCQ that we are now providing water service. And we're in the process now of being named the temporary operator. The system is running fine. They're happy. We're averaging about 11,000 gallons a day now, total between the two systems combined. And we have 30,000 gallons on the ground, 40,000 gallons production a day. Basically, we've got a week's worth of water anytime we want, easily. So it's trivially handling the system. It would be about another 20 to 25 more connections to Rocky Point. Incremental cost would be about $1. Basically, it's nothing because they're interconnected. The MDD is approved, taking it over, merging the two systems. So we're going to go down that path. We, as the city, have to acquire it. So we have to acquire it, and then then we will transfer it to the MDD and let them operate it. But that's ongoing. We're going to meet with TCQ next week. Basically, we're going to be the temporary operator, which means that we run it. We met with Blair. We talked with Dr. Blair, who is the owner. He's agreed to give it to Lakewood Village as long as we run it and keep it. We fulfill the obligation to run it. They have a well. Our well is 330 feet deep. It's a wood line. Their well is 1,600 feet deep, and it's a Paluxy well. It's deeper than our well. It currently doesn't operate. It puts out 0 gallons per minute. So we're going to keep that well, and someday we may figure it out. But we're not going to plug it. We're just going to keep it. The rest of their stuff we're going to get rid of. It doesn't work. We will probably take their pressure tank and move it to Lakewood Village. They have about a 2,000-gallon pressure tank, those sausage-looking things, which is it's perfectly fine. It's a tank. Linda had a great idea. We're going to bring it back to us. We're going to use it for our recycled water. And part of that system, because we need a pressure tank for that. And that'll be really good. Because that'll allow us to keep the pressure up, which means when you run the system, you'll be able to keep it up longer. So we're in that process of doing that. At some point, I'm going to have to come to you with like some sort of agreement or something where we officially, notify TCQ that we're the person. But just want to give you a heads up. It's an emergency situation. We've got an emergency interconnect right now. We're going to move to a permanent interconnection as soon as they give us the go-ahead. Citizens are ecstatic. They have clean water. They haven't had it in years. They've got high water pressure. They think they've gone to heaven.
They're very happy.
It's fantastic. The idea would be that we'll probably read meters maybe, the original intent was maybe September 15th as a baseline, and then not charge them until October. If we are not named the operator, then we'll just let them cruise for another month, and we'll read it in October, and we'll bill them November. It's costing Rocky Point almost nothing to be a good guy. It's already interconnected. One of the fallouts of that was my talks with Mark Patterson and his attempt to acquire the system. And we'll talk about it a little bit in executive session, but TCQ reached out to us. They asked Lakewood Village if we could do an emergency interconnect. If there's some way we could help and bail them out. They had the water for over 2 weeks. About 2 weeks, they had no water at all. 0. Before, the way I left it with Mark, I talked to Mark, explained to him that we were now the operator, etc. Mark explained that he was a businessman. He was going to do business decisions. which is, I said, fine, we'll talk when I get back, was this week, and he quit the next day. He gave us his termination notice. He was quitting. So he gave us 30 days notice, which has now been revised, as we explained to him. His attorneys have now told us it's 90 days, which was, yes, that's what we told you. So we're fine for 90 days. I've already lined up another operator. So it's basically we're fine. These guys stick around for 90 days. The reason I'm bringing this up is because on the agenda it says about possible litigation with Patterson, and I want the context to get out there. It's not a safety violation. It has nothing to do with Lakewood Village. It has nothing to do with our water, our sewer. Everything is fully compliant here in Lakewood Village. It has absolutely nothing to do with Lakewood Village. So I want to make that clear in open session that our potential issues with Mark relate to Rocky Point. They have nothing to do with Lakewood Village right now. He has to be our operator for 90 days, and that 90 days kind of gives us a chance to make sure we got all of our paperwork, we're compliant. We basically give us time to break away, cleanly. There's no hanging chads here. So that's what's going on with that. Okay, but it's good. It's good for everybody. It's good for them. They've got clean water. It's good for us. And it's really good for the MDD. MDD is doing very well. Any questions? Okay. Next up is discussion of the Halloween Hayride alternatives. So probably, as you probably figured out, so I officially canceled the Hayride. I'll put it in the mayor's letter. We have 2 mayor's letters to go before Halloween. So we're not going to have a hayride. We just can't. We can't put people together. But there are several alternatives. One alternative, and I want to brainstorm. That's why I'm doing it early. So one option would be, I was thinking, would be to solicit from people who want to give out candy, and basically make a map. Say these houses have agreed that, let's say, the person will either be outside or they'll wear a mask. Little kids aren't going to wear masks unless it's a scary mask, but you can't count on them. But basically, if you don't want the trick-or-treaters coming, you can turn off your lights and that's fine. But if we get a map, like we have a city map for that, with color-coded, hey, here's 15 houses and 10 in the shores, and these people have said they've got candy, they want you to come. Then it's a safe Halloween, because now we can control